Rain tapped gently on the windows of the small diner, casting streaks down the glass like the tears of the little girl at table 4. Emily, barely 7, sat silently with her hands folded in her lap. Her oversized coat hung off her bony shoulders, second-hand and soaked from the downpour. Across from her sat her stepmother, Veronica, sharp heels, sharp tone, and a heart that didn't seem to beat for anyone but herself. The waitress brought over 2 glasses of milk. Before Emily could lift hers, Veronica narrowed her eyes and, in one sudden motion, poured the cold milk over the girl's head. "You embarrassed me in the store, now look at yourself," she snapped, loud enough for the diners to turn. Milk dripped from Emily's matted hair onto her plate. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Her eyes didn't cry, she had learned not to cry anymore. In the corner of the diner, a man in a charcoal coat stood up abruptly. The hush that followed carried weight. He was tall, clean-cut, and unmistakably out of place, the kind of presence that turned heads even in silence. "Stop!" he boomed, his voice like thunder breaking the tension. Everyone froze. Veronica glanced up, flustered. "Excuse me." But the man didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on Emily, not with pity, but something deeper. Recognition? Understanding? What no one knew, not even Emily, was that this stranger had once been just like her. And today was different. The diner was silent except for the quiet drip of milk from Emily's hair onto the floor. The man walked forward, calm but with purpose. He crouched beside Emily, gently pulling a napkin from the table to wipe her face. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Emily," she whispered, avoiding his eyes. He smiled, not out of pity but warmth. "That's a strong name. I knew an Emily once. She saved my life." Veronica stood up, arms crossed. "She's fine. This is none of your business." But the man slowly stood, his height suddenly making Veronica shrink a little. When a child is humiliated in public, it becomes everyone's business. The waitress, who'd been watching wide-eyed, now stepped closer. "Sir, are you?" The man turned, smiling. "Nathan Cross." A collective gasp passed through the diner. Nathan Cross, the tech billionaire who'd grown up in foster care, the one who'd recently donated millions to shelters and schools. "I used to sit in places like this," he said, turning to address the room. "Cold. Alone. Telling myself to be strong. No one ever stepped in." He looked down at Emily. "But not today," Veronica scoffed. "You don't know anything about us." "I know enough," he replied calmly. "She deserves kindness." He looked at the waitress. "Can we get her some dry clothes? And maybe a hot cocoa?" Emily looked up at him, eyes wide. "Why are you helping me?" Nathan crouched again. "Because once someone should have helped me." Emily didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. The waitress returned moments later with a thick sweater from the Lost and Found and a steaming cup of cocoa. Emily wrapped her fingers around the mug like it was a treasure. Veronica was pacing now, her voice low but venomous. "This is ridiculous. You don't know this girl. She's always like this, quiet, weird. You try raising someone else's kid." Nathan stood still, watching Veronica with a calmness that unnerved her. "You're right. Raising a child is hard. But kindness isn't." Veronica rolled her eyes and muttered something about calling the police. Nathan didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to Emily again. "Do you live with her full-time?" Emily hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Since my dad went away." "Went away?" Nathan asked gently. "Prison," Veronica cut in. 3 years ago. Fraud charges. I stayed to take care of her, no thanks, no help, just me." But Nathan saw through it. Emily wasn't just neglected, she was surviving. He knelt beside her again. "Emily, would it be okay if I made a call? To someone who helps kids like you feel safe?" Emily looked between him and Veronica. "Will she be mad?" Nathan leaned closer, his voice soft. "She can be mad. But you get to be safe. The little girl blinked, then nodded. Veronica's face turned crimson. This is unbelievable. Nathan stood tall. No, what's unbelievable is that someone let this happen right under everyone's noses. As he pulled out his phone, he looked around the diner. How many of us see pain and say nothing? That stops today. Outside, the rain had slowed. Inside, something else was beginning to change. Nathan stepped outside the diner, shielding his phone from the drizzle. He dialed a familiar number, a woman named Carla, a child advocate he'd worked with for years. Carla, I've got a situation. A little girl named Emily. She's not safe. Can you come now? She didn't ask questions. She just said, I'm on my way. Back inside, Emily sat quietly, sipping cocoa, the borrowed sweater snug around her shoulders. Veronica scrolled her phone, pretending everything was fine, but her foot tapped anxiously. Can I go now? She asked Nathan as he re-entered. This is harassment. He didn't respond directly. Instead, he crouched beside Emily again. You okay? Emily nodded. Then whispered, Will she be mad at you? Nathan smiled gently. I've been yelled at by worse. Minutes later, the door jingled. Carla entered calm and warm, like someone who'd walked into scenes like this before. She knelt in front of Emily, her tone gentle. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Carla. I help kids when things don't feel safe. Veronica jumped up. She's not going anywhere. She's my stepdaughter. Carla remained steady. She'll stay here for now, with us. Just until we know she's okay. Emily looked up at Nathan, fear flickering in her eyes. He reached out, offering his hand. You're not alone anymore, he said. Her small hand slipped into his. The room was still, not from fear, but a shift. A silent acknowledgement that something right was finally happening. A woman at another table wiped her eyes. A man near the door nodded slowly. In that moment, no one cared that Nathan was a millionaire. They cared that he saw her. That he stopped. That he cared enough to act. And Emily? She began to believe, maybe, just maybe, she mattered. 2 days later, sunlight streamed through the windows of a quiet group home just outside the city. Emily sat at a kitchen table, a coloring book open, crayons scattered like candy. Her hair was clean. Her clothes were warm. Her smile, small but real. Across from her, Carla poured orange juice. You slept through the night, she said. That's a good sign. Emily nodded, coloring in the sun with soft yellow strokes. The bed was soft. No yelling. Carla's eyes warmed. That's how it should be. The front door creaked open. Nathan stepped in, holding a paper bag. Hope I'm not too early. Emily's face lit up. I brought muffins, he said, grinning. Blueberry. The good kind? She ran up and hugged him, a little unsure, but brave enough to try. Nathan knelt, returning the hug with quiet care. You doing okay? He asked. She nodded. Carla says I might get to stay here. Or maybe with a family. A nice one. Nathan looked over at Carla, who gave a hopeful nod. I'll still see you, right? Emily asked, suddenly worried. Nathan smiled. Every week, if you'll let me. Maybe even more. A long pause. Then Emily said, almost to herself, No one ever came back for me before. Nathan's voice caught. Well, now someone has. That afternoon, they planted a flower in the backyard, Emily's idea. She named it Hope. Not for what had happened, but for what could. Because the day her stepmother poured milk on her head, Emily thought the world would look away again. But someone saw her. Someone said stop. And because of that, a little girl who thought she didn't matter finally began to grow.